The front door is really where the energy all comes into your space, so super ultra important in feng shui, and in order to get the energy flowing, we do need to have an open area at the front door.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Onion Soup. And I'd like to welcome today our guest, Miss Kim Julen. How are you doing today?
Good, I'm great.
Awesome. So I'm really excited to talk to you because I've been wanting to talk to someone that's an expert in your field. You do feng shui. Tell us
Yes.
about that. What is feng shui and how did you get started into it?
Yeah. So feng shui is really, I think about it as creating an environment that energetically supports you and the things that you want to draw into your life. And for me, what happened for me is we had moved into a new home, and this was many, many years ago. And actually, my son that's turning 30 one actually, was I think he was 4 when we moved into the home, so it was quite a long time ago, but we moved in, and it was a beautiful new home. We had kind of helped design it and all of these things, and things weren't going well. Like, we had plenty of money coming in, we were both working, and so much money going out, and relationship-wise, things weren't going well. There was just a lot of, like, little things that weren't going well, and I happened to be at the library with my boys, and I stumbled across a book on feng shui, as will happen when we're ready for something. It will just appear for us. And I started reading and doing, making some changes within the home, real simple things, and it worked and fast, really fast. So I that was kind of my introduction into it. And I kind of, did some studying on my own and dabbling on my own for many years until my feng shui teacher came into my life, and I was certified in 2014.
Wow. That's so interesting to me because when I at least think about feng shui, I'm familiar with it being the movement of objects and furniture and things, and that kind of shifting the energy around you. Would that be an accurate way of
Yes.
describing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how
So,
does that work with your relationship and stuff?
yeah. So, what happened with our home? I practice what's called BTB feng shui, which is more of a westernized version of feng shui because our homes in the US and other Western parts of the world are not typically set on east, west, north, south axes. We have a lot of cul de sacs. We have a lot of like sort of goofy things that we do in the West. And the BTB version of feng shui works better for that. Plus, it's a little bit easier for people to understand. So I always start with that layer. I do also practice some classical feng shui as well. And what happened with our home is we were actually missing a piece in our relationship area. And so all of the areas of your home correlate to areas of your life. And we happen to be missing a chunk of that relationship corner. And so I had placed a cure, what we call a cure or an adjustment, outside at the time, and then kind of forgot about it, and it got moved. I think it was maybe a holder or something that I put in the ground at that corner, and it wasn't something permanent, and so, things got better for a while, but then they didn't. Then they kinda went, then the cure got moved or removed, and then things, stopped working with that. But it was really interesting with the money piece of things too, because we had a front door that aligned directly with the back door. So if you were to roll a ball from our front door, it would go directly out a back door, which was onto our deck. And when that happens, money can be coming in, but then it's going right out the back door. And there's energetically needing to do something to slow that down or stop that energy. And so I ended up hanging a crystal between the doors. It was closer to the front door, but where the positioning of it for that one doesn't really matter. And it stopped the money flow. Like all these bills or things that kept coming up stopped. And so we were able to keep more of our money. So it was a really lovely an interesting thing for me to notice what happened when I started doing some of those things.
Wow. Do you actually feel that shift of energy, or does it just show up as in various areas and aspects of your life?
Yeah, so I when I'm in a space because I'm super intuitive, I feel energy. And so I'll feel like when I walk into a space. So, for example, I work with a lot of female chiropractors. For some reason, female chiropractors and realtors and therapists, those are typically a lot of the people that are drawn to me, maybe I would say. But I work with a lot of female chiropractors. So one of my clients, I went to her office to do a feng shui consultation. And immediately when I walked in, I was like, ooh, something, I just felt something felt like I was being attacked almost.
Mm.
And what I noticed is that when I walked in the doors and they had these nice, beautiful double doors, it was a beautiful space, all of that kind of thing. But when I walked in, they had a little seating area. I think there was even like a kids' play area there. And there was a shelf that created sort of this corner aiming, and what we call in feng shui an arrow aiming at the front door. And I could feel that until even before I saw it, I could feel that arrow energy coming at me. And so I don't typically move furniture when I do consults, but I'm like, we got to move this right now. This is, everyone that comes in is going to just feel not great about being there if they feel that. So I do feel energy. As far as what my clients notice is a lot of times after they make shifts or changes, they feel calmer. They feel more relaxed. They feel that before even it shows up in their life, right? So they'll feel the difference and then they'll see the evidence of it coming in.
Oh, interesting. So you mentioned that a lot of your clients tend to be chiropractors, therapists, and realtors. And that all makes sense to me because in chiropractor, you want your patient to be relaxed. Realty, I
Right.
mean, we're talking about homes.
Yeah, selling
Therapy,
homes.
same thing.
Yeah.
But you also do it for other businesses, right? So
Yes.
how does feng shui help with the business aspects of things?
Yeah. So feng shui is honestly amazing. I have noticed that people will come to me when something specific is happening. Usually that's why they come because they're having trouble with something. So one of my clients was a plumbing, actually they owned a large plumbing business in the Twin Cities in Minnesota and they were having trouble with their reputation. And also, their employees and even themselves were feeling like very burnt out. Just the business had grown super fast. They were really successful, but there were all of these other little things going on there. And so what happened for me when I went in there, I was able to identify what was energetically causing those issues. In their case, they had a little missing area in their fame area, so we remedied that. They had a lot of fire energy in the space, so one of their logo colors was red. And red in feng shui correlates with the element of fire, which is great. We need a balance of all of the elements when we are working in a space, but they had so much fire. So much fire. The walls, several of the walls were red, all of their uniforms were red. There was just red everywhere, which it can really be too much fire and can cause people to feel even anxious, angry, fly off the handle, but also just burnout, right? And so that was one of the things. And then also uh, if I'm remembering this was this client or it could have been another one, but they had a rug. A lot of times you have those welcome rugs when you come into a space and it had their logo on it. And so people were walking all over their good name. They come in with the snow on their feet and they're wiping their feet on their name, which is not good for their reputation. It's not good for, how they show up in the community. And there were some other things going on with that client as well. So feng shui, kind of back to your question, it can help with money flow. It can help people find your business, whether they actually come to your space personally or whether it's an online business, because there are things energetically, if the energy can't find you, the people aren't gonna find you no matter where you're at, so that can be helpful with that. Can definitely help with clients, it can help with, employees, hiring, creating that balance. If people have a lot of turnover, there
Mm.
can be things that are going on related to that energetically that can be remedied.
So, how does that work with online businesses or online presences? Because for my I thought Feng Shui was just a physical space thing.
Yeah. Well, your physical space, even if you are not seeing clients in your space, because I don't see clients here in my home, but it impacts it. So if you are working in a space that doesn't energetically support you and the things that you're wanting to draw in, it will show up in your life. And when you make those shifts in your spaces, so just a little example, I had a client who was an animal communicator and she was feeling really unfocused. When she would try to sit down at her desk, she just had trouble focusing, trouble working. And what I noticed in her space is that, well, a couple things. She had her desk positioned so that her back was to the door to the space. And that can be really where you feel like people can sort of surprise you or come up on you, and you're not ready for what's coming in your business. And so it can make you feel uncomfortable and just sort of unsettled. So we remedied that. We had her move her desk around. And then the other thing was there was a lot of, because her office housed some other things. So sometimes people have to use their office spaces for multiple purposes, right? Then the energy can get a little bit confused. And one of the things that we did to sort of help her focus is to hang a small crystal above her desk. And that just sort of balances the energy. It helps really deflect any, arrows, any energy around her that was distracting her. So it sort of helped her calm down, if you will.
Hmm, interesting. You've mentioned hanging crystals twice. Does it matter what type of crystals and what effect actually does it have with bending
Yeah.
the energy and balancing the energy in the area?
Yeah. So the crystals that I typically use for regular cures around the home, so there's a lots of different areas or reasons that we might use them, are usually smaller. They're about 30 millimeter size, 20 or 30 millimeter size is the kind that I like. 20 millimeter mostly because they're just sort of small, which is, maybe this big, right? And I like to use crystals that are round and that are faceted and that have 30% lead. So lead has a balancing energy. The roundness of it has balancing energy, and the facets also have that balancing or even can be deflecting energy because we often use crystals to deflect outside sources. So even if you have a neighbor, for example, that is troublesome, so that you can hang a crystal. We sometimes will use mirrors for things like that too, but crystals are a little bit softer with that, and the
Hmm,
crystal will sort of deflect that energy. So, yeah, 20 millimeter, 30% lead, round, faceted, and it needs to hang freely. So I typically will hang it from either fishing line or a red thread because in feng shui, red is a success color and I'll use it in a length of 9. So 9 in feng shui is about reaching new heights. It's the last number before they repeat again, and so it's a very magical number in feng shui. We use it for a lot of our cures. We specifically use it when we're doing some mantras and things like that, and the 9 is energetically putting that success into it. So I will cut whatever the a fishing line or the thread into a length of 9, whether it's 9 centimeters or 9 inches, whatever I need, and then just make sure that that crystal hangs freely.
wow, that's so interesting. So, one thing that keeps popping in my head is where did all this come from? The origins of Feng Shui.
Yeah, so feng shui is thousands of years old and it came from ancient China. And originally, the way that it was being used is when a person's or a family's ancestor died, they would position the grave or the burial site in what they felt was a lucky position. And the reason they did that is so that that luck would continue for the rest of the people in the family. And so by making that burial space very intentional, it was felt that that would bring good luck for the ongoing ancestors of that person.
Oh, interesting. So then it's just kind of evolved over the years since then?
It has, and it's very it's steeped in a lot of tradition. And so when we use feng shui, there's a specific ways that we do things. There are specific customs that we honor. For example, the red envelope tradition is something that is still used in China today. So you'll see you can buy red envelopes on Amazon, and definitely around Chinese New Year, they'll have the red envelope with the animal of the year on there, or, other symbols or signs. And the red envelopes are used to honor the exchange of information. And so what I do when I do a consult is I have the client send me a red envelope. The tradition is 9 red envelopes, but in the nature of saving some paper, I usually just ask them to give me 1 red envelope, and that red envelope, either they'll put the payment in it, or if they're paying online, then they will put, some coins or paper money in there, and in receiving that, I am accepting their intentions. So I'll actually put some more thought into their intentions as well when I receive the red envelope. And it's a protection energy for me as well in sharing that information with them.
Ooh, so diving into the exchange of information and communication, you also do work with angels. What
Yeah.
role does feng shui play in talking to angels?
Yeah, so I consider angels helpful people. And we do have an area of the Bagua that is helpful people. And it is when you are looking at your home, and this is something people will be able to grab in my free gift. I have the Bagua, the colored Bagua, which is a mental map of your space, and it outlines where the different areas fall within your home. But the Bagua is set up in the BTB feng shui based on the front door. So when you're looking at the space, the far back left corner of your home is the wealth area. The far back right corner of your home is partnership. Helpful people is the right front area of your home. And so this is an area where I might recommend someone that's looking for more clients to hang a wind chime, for example, and that will bring in, that activates the energy. So I think of angels as our helpful people. I also feel like they help us with wisdom and knowledge, which is the right, or I'm sorry, the left front corner of the home. So we have kind of the opposite corners there. And the angels really help me a lot with my work. So I do a lot of space clearings. For example, if someone's trying to sell their home, sometimes there's old energy in there. Maybe the people argued a lot. Maybe they got a divorce. Maybe someone died in the home. And that energy, people can feel it when they come in to the home. It might be the most beautiful space ever. And when they come into the home, they just, something feels off to them and they're like, no, this isn't our home. But once it's been clear, and the angels will help me with that. So they'll actually come in. I feel like they do all the heavy lifting. I facilitate the clearing, but they're really doing all of the work. So I call them in. I actually will anchor the space with angels, and those angels will have messages for the person that requested the consult as well. And they'll get information about maybe things that they need to do, something that they need to shift, or something that the home needs to. be able to open to the new owner coming in the case of a home that's for sale.
Interesting. So, Bagua, that's a word I haven't heard before. Can you touch
Yeah.
a little bit more into what that is?
Yeah, so Bagua literally means 8 sides. Ba means 8 and gua means side. So in the traditional feng shui bagua, there are 8 sides. And that includes, each of the we kind of square it off. So a traditional bagua has angled sides to it, but we will square it off for our purposes. And then we have eight life areas. That would be the wealth, fame, partnership, creativity in children, helpful people, which we talked about, career or life purpose. I think of that for people that aren't working any longer. We have knowledge, and then we also have family. So those are kind of the core outer 8 areas that make up the Bagua. But then the center is the most important piece. That is the ninth area, and that is health, because our health impacts everything else. If we don't have our health, it's going to impact everything in our lives. If our health is amazing, other things will go well also. And so that's where the Bagua comes into play. And we talk about Baguas a lot because people's spaces have their own Bagua, and it's showing them where in the home, for instance, their career area is or where their family area is. And I can actually tell what's going on in someone's space without knowing them just by looking at the Bagua or looking at their space.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've always been told growing up that the main space that you live in, that you do all of your activities in, if it's cluttered and messy, that means your mind is also cluttered and messy. And if you spend a lot
Yeah.
of time driving and your car's cluttered, messy, dirty, then your mind is cluttered, messy, and dirty.
Yeah. Yes, and, clutter is stuck energy.
Mm,
So when we have a lot of clutter, we have a lot of things in our space, it is really difficult for us to think because it's hard for us to focus when there's just a lot of other distractions, if you will, around us. But the clutter physically also can be very heavy energy. I've noticed with clients that are trying to lose weight, for example, often have a lot of clutter in their home. And that clutter is sort of physically weighing them down. What happened with one of my clients, she cleared out a lot of clutter after we did a feng shui consultation, and it shifted something in her mentally. She was able to start running, she started losing a bunch of weight. Just it was sort of that ripple effect of things. And I think for us too, as humans, especially now in this day and age, there's so many things to distract us that if we can at least have a space at home that's well organized, where we know things are placed, where we know where to find things, it helps really calm down our physical body and our minds as well.
mm. How do you get somebody to get started with cleaning up that space? Because a lot of times it's just difficult for people to start, and then that's the problem as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like the chicken or the egg, right? They can't get started because there's so much clutter, they can't focus, that type of thing. Yeah, so oftentimes I will do a space clearing, if someone has, something like that where they're really wanting to make a big shift, I'll do a space clearing for them, but I say start small. So maybe just set a timer for 9 minutes a day, and for 9 minutes, go to one space in your home. I typically like to start with the bedroom because we spend a third of our lives in the bedroom. That's where we rest, that's where we recharge. It's the room that's closest to our physical bodies, and also it's meant for rest and romance only, and a lot of people have other things in there, exercise equipment, work, like, all kinds of things in there that can be causing issues, with them not being able to sleep or not being able to calm down. So I typically will say start in the bedroom, 9 minutes a day, remove things that don't have to do with rest or romance in that space, and at least clear off one, maybe it's a dresser top. Just clear it off and leave it clear for several days because that can just alone be like, "Oh, I have one spot that's clear. I can look at this spot and there's nothing on it."
That's so interesting. So when my partner and I first moved in together, I was like, I don't allow TVs in my bedroom, and I almost never eat in my room unless it's
Right.
one of those special occasions, I brought you breakfast type things, which is so
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I agree actually with the no TVs in the bedroom because that is, well, number 1, EMFs, but number 2, it's a black hole that's sort of sucking your energy while you're sleeping. And a lot of people then tend to, watch TV instead of talking to each other or actually going to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. I also and this is I wouldn't call it a problem, but a lot of people have their phones and they're constantly scrolling on social media, and where you're programming your mind before you go to bed with whatever you're scrolling on, and that's
Yeah.
also non-beneficial for your energy.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. And we just have to be so mindful about what we're ingesting. That's part of one of the things that I talk about. I have a group coaching program for women, and we talk about the static because there's a lot of static that keeps us from connecting, kind of bringing back to the angels and your guides. Everyone has a team of angels and guides that are they're helping you 24/7 all the time. A lot of people are like, "I don't have angels, I don't have guides." They can't hear them because there's so much static. There's so much else that is getting in the way of that, and so that's one of the things that we work on is what is the static in your life, and how can you remove that, right? So that you can get that experience of hearing your angels and guides, asking for help, and hearing their answers is really important. But again, with everything that's going on around us, it can be very difficult. So, static can show up in a lot of different ways. Physical stuff is static, people, what we ingest, what we watch and listen to, all of those things are static. And so we do not want to be putting static in before we go to sleep because that's our connection time. That's when the veil's thinnest, or we can actually really receive a lot of good information from our angels and guides.
Wow, so beautifully said. Well, Kim, we only have a few minutes left. Is there anything you would like to leave with the audience before we go?
Sure. I just have, for those that are interested in learning more about feng shui, I do have a free gift that is my Open the Door to a Brighter Life. It gives you 6 tips for your front door. We talked about some of the things with the front door, but the front door is really where the energy all comes into your space. So super ultra important in feng shui. And in order to get the energy flowing, we do need to have an open area at the front door. And so that free gift will give people more information about the Bagua and how to apply that to your home and all kinds of other little tips that are easy and quick to implement.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this episode of Onion Soup. I hope you all shift the energy in your houses because I know I sure will after this conversation. And have a great one. Bye.
Beautiful. Thanks, Dexter.